I want you to take a second and just picture the quintessential modern business success story. Seriously, conjure up that image in your head right now, what you see.
Oh, I bet I know. It's the 20-something tech genius, right?
Exactly. You're probably picturing some visionary in a hoodie standing on a brightly lit stage with a slick pitch deck talking about, a disruptive new app that's inevitably going to change the world.
It is entirely the defining image of our era, like the lone genius building the future out of a garage or some Silicon Valley incubator.
Right. But what if that image is completely backwards? Like, what if the actual face of modern wealth creation, the real opportunity sitting right in front of you, isn't a tech genius in a hoodie at all?
Oh, I love where this is going.
What if it's actually someone stepping in to run a 30-year-old local HVAC company?
Mm.
We are diving into a single, incredibly fascinating source today. It's an essay by John F. Hendershot titled The Startup Delusion Nobody Wants to Talk About.
And honestly, it is quite the read. I mean, it really shakes things up.
It does. And I have to mention, I love that your video backdrop today has shifted to that cool industrial cityscape. It perfectly fits the vibe we're going for. But before we dig in, Hendershot takes a highly polarizing stance here. And I want to state right up front, our goal today isn't to tell you he's absolutely right or to endorse his specific worldview.
Yeah, we're definitely not taking a side.
Right. Our job is simply to map out his argument, look at the evidence he presents, and let you decide for yourself.
Because his core argument, I mean, it is a direct challenge to everything modern culture has taught us about entrepreneurship. He's asking us to essentially strip away the glamour of the startup ecosystem and look at some very uncomfortable economic realities.
Our mission today is to do exactly that. We're going to uncover what the author calls one of the greatest wealth transfer opportunities in modern American history. It's hiding in plain sight, and almost no one is talking about it. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, the psychological trap blinding ambitious people right now, that's really where we need to start. Because before we can talk about where this massive financial opportunity actually lies, we have to understand, the mechanics of why so many brilliant, driven people are looking in the exact opposite direction.
Yeah, the essay goes aggressively after our cultural obsession with word founder, like with a capital F. Society has constructed this massive pedestal that just celebrates risk and novelty above all else.
Oh, absolutely.
We treat people like visionaries simply because they have a sleek logo, an aesthetic social media presence, and a supposedly disruptive idea.
Right, but the word idea is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Hendershot points out a structural flaw in this culture. Like many of the people being celebrated on magazine covers and in pitch competitions, they've never actually built a profitable, self-sustaining business.
Yep.
They haven't managed a payroll out of their own revenue. They haven't navigated the brutal realities of a recession. And they definitely haven't dealt with the operational complexity of making a company survive purely on its own cash flow.
Which brings us to the reality check. And the statistics presented here are just brutal. Roughly 90% of startups fail.
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. And the source highlights the mechanism behind this failure rate. It isn't usually that the technology doesn't work. It's a fundamental lack of market need. People are building things that customers never actually wanted in the first place.
It's wild when you think about it.
We are talking about millions of dollars, thousands of hours of human talent, investor capital, intense emotional energy, all poured into unproven demand.
And when you look at that from a macro perspective, it's just a staggering misallocation of human and financial resources. And Hendershot introduces a term for the psychology driving this, which I think is brilliant. He calls it ownership theater.
Ownership theater. Wow, that phrase really sticks with you.
It perfectly captures the psychological addiction of the modern era. People desperately want their own brand. They want their own identity. They want the prestigious founder journey to post about on their professional network.
Yeah, it's all about the LinkedIn update.
Exactly. And the desire for that social validation is so intense that they will engage in this theater even if the business is actively burning through their personal savings and never turns a single dollar of profit. Rational entrepreneurship takes a backseat to ego.
It makes me think of someone throwing a massive multi-million-dollar opening night party for a Broadway show before they've even written a script, or checked if the locals actually enjoy going to the theater.
That is a great way to put it.
The marquee is lit up, the red carpet is rolled out, the PR team is taking photos, but the actual product, the thing that sustains the entire enterprise, it simply doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, they are celebrating the launch of the concept rather than the validation of the business model.
I struggle with this premise a little bit, though. Let me push back on Hendershot here for a second. If everyone stops aiming for the moon and just plays it safe, who builds the next clean energy grid? Who develops the next life-saving medical device or, like, commercial space flight?
Right, the big leaps.
Yeah. Isn't that blind, irrational ambition exactly what pushes human society forward? Is he suggesting we just abandon innovation entirely?
What's fascinating here is how the venture capital ecosystem has distorted our understanding of innovation. Ambition and innovation are absolutely crucial. But the venture capital model, the financial engine, funding this specific startup culture is structurally designed to reward asymmetrical outcomes.
Wait, asymmetrical outcomes. Walk us through the mechanics of how that actually works behind the scenes.
Sure. So a venture capital fund operates on a very specific mathematical model. They know going in that the vast majority of the startups they fund, that 80 or 90% are going to fail completely and their investment will go to zero.
They just accept that.
They bake that loss right into their strategy. They're placing dozens of high-risk bets to find that one elusive company that might return 100 or even 1,000 times their initial investment. That is the unicorn.
Ah, right.
And to get that kind of massive world-changing financial return, you have to swing for the fences with wildly disruptive, totally unproven ideas.
So the VCs are playing a massive numbers game where failure is just a line item on a spreadsheet.
Exactly. But the individual founder only has one life, one career, and one savings account. The venture capital model is entirely disconnected from what most normal, ambitious people actually want out of entrepreneurship.
Which is what, usually?
The average person isn't genuinely trying to build a global monopoly-scale unicorn. They want financial stability. They want reliable cash flow to pay their mortgage. They want autonomy, asset ownership, and to build generational wealth for their family.
Where they've been sold a cultural script that says the only way to achieve middle class or upper middle class stability is to play a billionaire's high-risk 100x casino game.
Yes, and applying a venture capital strategy to a personal retirement goal almost guarantees they will fail. The founder absorbs 100% of the existential risk, but the financial model they're using was never built to optimize for their personal stability.
So the psychological trap of startups leaves us with a mathematical problem.
Yeah.
We have all this incredible human ambition with nowhere mathematically safe to go.
Yeah.
But Hendershot points out that demographics are quietly solving this problem for us right now, which leads us to the actual opportunity.
He identifies a massive, immediate demographic shift happening right under our noses. He calls it the silver tsunami.
The silver tsunami. I mean, it sounds like an impending disaster, but it's actually about a very specific transfer of assets.
Right.
The baby boomer generation owns an overwhelming percentage of the privately held businesses in the United States. We are talking about millions of companies. And right now, thousands of those owners are turning 65 every single day, quietly approaching retirement.
And the catch is, a massive portion of them have absolutely no succession plan. There is no one prepared to take over what they spent the last 3 decades building.
That's wild.
And we need to be very clear about the specific types of businesses we're discussing here. These are what the startup world derisively calls boring businesses. The source lists them explicitly: manufacturing facilities, commercial HVAC contractors, machine shops, regional logistics and trucking firms, commercial cleaning operations, auto repair chains, B2B suppliers.
So really just the unglamorous heavy lifting backbone of the local economy.
Exactly. They don't have sleek aesthetic branding, and they certainly aren't going to get you a profile in a tech magazine. But let's look at the mechanics of what they do have. They have a massive database of existing paying customers. They have established operational systems. They have trained employees who actually show up every day. They have decades of tax returns proving their viability. They have multi-year vendor contracts. They generate actual tangible cash flow on a Monday morning.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If you compare this dynamic to the startup world, it's like an ambitious person who wants to be a mechanic, right? They're standing in a garage next to a classic functioning 1968 Mustang.
Okay, I see where you're going.
It runs, it drives, maybe the transmission slips a little bit, and it needs a modern fuel injection system installed. But instead of buying that car and fixing the transmission, they ignore it completely, buy a pile of raw iron ore, and try to invent a brand new type of combustion engine from scratch, hoping someone will want to buy it in 5 years.
And they are choosing the iron ore simply because the current culture rewards the performance of inventing something new over the practical reality of maintaining something valuable.
But why is the blind spot so severe? Is it purely the ego of ownership theater? Like, why are young, highly educated entrepreneurs walking right past a commercial cleaning firm that clears $1 million in profit a year to go build a scheduling app that just bleeds cash?
It is heavily influenced by how the current attention economy defines success. We have unintentionally trained an entire generation to confuse attention with viability and novelty with genuine economic opportunity.
Oh, that's so true.
The social capital in our culture is attached to the idea and the disruption. There is virtually no prestige in telling your peers at a networking event that you just took out a loan to buy a 30-year-old regional plumbing company.
Even if that plumbing company provides infinitely more financial security than the trendy app.
Exactly. As Hendershot argues, that cultural mindset is economically dangerous. We are collectively ignoring highly functional engines of wealth simply because they don't possess the right modern aesthetic.
So once you strip away that aesthetic bias and actually see this massive inventory of ignored, profitable businesses, the obvious question is how a listener actually capitalizes on it. The source argues that doing so requires a total redefinition of the word entrepreneur.
It does. The essay introduces ETA, or entrepreneurship through acquisition. Hendershot positions this as one of the most vital yet under-discussed concepts in modern business strategy.
Entrepreneurship through acquisition. So the fundamental concept is buying an existing business instead of starting one from zero. But the crucial shift here is the author's argument that buying is not less entrepreneurial than starting.
Not at all. In fact, he suggests that stepping into the seat of an existing operation often demands more courage, significantly more operational competence, and a much higher level of nuanced leadership than launching a speculative startup.
That's so.
Consider the immediate weight of the responsibility you're taking on. When you launch a software startup from your laptop, if you fail in the first year, you lose some investor capital, your pride takes a hit, and you pivot to a new idea.
Pretty low stakes, personally.
Right. But when you acquire a 30-year-old manufacturing firm, you are instantly responsible for protecting the livelihoods of 50 employees. You have to preserve delicate, decades-old relationships with local vendors. You are tasked with modernizing aging systems, improving profit margins without alienating the staff, and carefully maintaining a company culture you didn't create. The required skill set is entirely different from pitching a concept to investors.
It reminds me of the fundamental difference between adopting an older rescue dog versus breeding a brand new puppy.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. Taking on any animal is a huge responsibility, but the rescue dog comes with an entire history. It has deeply established behaviors. It might have trust issues from previous owners that you have to carefully navigate. It has routines it expects. You can't just mold it from day one. You have to earn its respect, understand its quirks, and very slowly, patiently guide it toward better habits.
You are inheriting the totality of the business. You get the incredibly loyal customer base that pays the bills, but also, very likely, the deeply outdated legacy software from 1998 that desperately needs an upgrade.
Which actually makes me want to push back on the safety of this strategy. Taking over a 30-year-old company sounds incredibly risky for a new outside operator. You just mentioned the outdated 1998 software. You're inheriting someone else's technical debt.
True.
And you might be walking into a completely stagnant company culture where the veteran employees are deeply resistant to any kind of change from a new boss. How is managing all of that legacy baggage safer than just building a clean, modern company right the first time yourself?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, fixing that legacy baggage is the exact mechanism of value creation. That is where the wealth is systematically generated in ETA.
Really, just fixing the old stuff.
Yeah. When you start from scratch, you carry massive market validation. The risk of wondering, will anyone actually buy this product? But when you buy an existing HVAC company, you already know the market needs air conditioning repair. The market validation risk is gone.
So you are trading market risk for execution risk.
Precisely. Can you take a legacy business doing $2 million in revenue with razor-thin margins and execute a modernization plan? For example, implementing a modern CRM, a digital customer relationship management system to replace their dusty filing cabinets.
Walk us through how that specific change actually creates wealth.
Okay, an older business relying on paper invoices and manual scheduling often loses 10 to 15% of its billable hours simply to administrative errors, lost paperwork, and inefficient routing of their technicians.
Just burning time and money.
Exactly. By introducing a digital CRM, you stop that revenue leakage instantly. The technicians are routed efficiently via GPS, the invoices are automated and tracked, and follow-ups are scheduled automatically. The business might not gain a single new customer, but simply by stopping the operational leaks, the profit margins jump from 10% to 20%. You double the profitability of the company purely through disciplined execution.
So you aren't inventing a new market. You are optimizing an existing one.
The ultimate paradigm shift here is moving away from the vanity of disruption, that urge to tear existing things down to build anew, and embracing the quiet, highly lucrative power of stewardship. The future billionaire, in Hendershot's view, won't necessarily be a software disruptor writing code. It is far more likely to be a highly disciplined operator who buys a retiring boomer's industrial company, implements modern technology, and scales it across a region.
Stewardship over disruption. That is an incredibly powerful reframing of ambition. And it brings us to the final and frankly most urgent part of our analysis. This shift from disruption to stewardship isn't just a strategy for making you, the listener, individually wealthy. Hendershot argues it is literally the linchpin for the survival of local economies across the country.
We really have to zoom out and look at the macro impact of the silver tsunami. This is not simply a retirement issue for individual business owners looking to play golf. It is a critical economic continuity issue for the entire nation.
Continuity, like keeping the economic engine of a town actually running. Because if no one steps in to acquire these businesses, the alternative is pretty grim. If the boomer owner reaches retirement age, can't find a buyer, and simply has to lock the doors, liquidate the trucks, and shut down the ripple effects through a local economy, are devastating.
Absolutely devastating.
Communities lose their primary employers. Dozens of families lose their reliable middle-class income. The local municipal tax base, which funds the schools and roads, suddenly shrinks. And perhaps most tragically, decades of deeply specialized, localized operational knowledge just vanish into thin air.
Think about the mechanics of a regional logistics firm that's been moving raw materials for 3 local manufacturing plants for 30 years. If that trucking firm closes because the founder retires and no young entrepreneur wanted to buy a boring logistics company, those 3 factories suddenly struggle to move their goods.
A supply chain breaks.
Right. Their shipping costs skyrocket as they scramble for out-of-state alternatives. To cover the costs, the factories raise prices or lay off their own workers. One retiring owner shutting their doors can initiate a domino effect that destabilizes an entire regional supply chain.
The painful irony of our current economic culture is palpable. At the exact moment America desperately needs practical, hands-on operators, people who can step in, roll up their sleeves, and preserve these highly functional, essential businesses. Society is still busy glamorizing founders with 0 revenue, 0 customers, and 0 operational history.
It is a profound misalignment of our cultural incentives and our actual economic reality. We are throwing parades for the people building castles in the sky, while the foundational bedrock of the economy is quietly asking for someone, anyone, to help keep the lights on.
So what does this all mean? For you listening right now, thinking about your own career trajectory, your investment mindset, or just how you fundamentally view success in the business world.
This raises an important question about how we, as a society, define true value. We've completely confused fundraising with value creation. Raising $5 million from venture capitalists for a startup is treated by the media as a massive success, an end in itself.
Like crossing the finish line.
Right, but mechanically, all that founder has done is take on a massive financial liability to run a high-risk experiment. We have confused branding with execution. True success, both for the individual operator building wealth and for the stability of the broader economy, might simply be preserving, optimizing, and scaling what already works.
We started this deep dive looking at the delusion of ownership theater, this burning, ego-driven desire to have a founder title, even if the mathematical reality is a 90% failure rate. And we have traveled all the way to the reality of the silver tsunami, uncovering this massive historic demographic shift that's creating opportunities hiding in plain sight within these boring, unglamorous, cash-flowing businesses across the country.
The greatest wealth transfer in modern history is actively happening right now. The businesses are there, the cash flow is real, and the owners are retiring. The only remaining question is who is going to recognize the opportunity, step up, and participate in it.
That brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We've spent this time analyzing the shift in mindset required for you as an individual investor or entrepreneur. But think about the massive systemic changes this requires. If the greatest economic opportunity of our time involves stepping into the well-worn shoes of retiring boomers, how are our educational systems going to need to adapt?
Oh, that's a great point.
Right now, universities are churning out graduates trained to build polished pitch decks, aiming to convince venture capitalists to fund the next speculative tech app. But perhaps the vital curriculum of the future shouldn't be about pitch decks or venture capital at all.
So what should it be?
Maybe the most important class a business school could teach is how a 25-year-old operator sits at a laminate kitchen table, drinks a cup of black coffee, and emotionally negotiates with a retiring 65-year-old founder who treats their auto repair shop like their own child.
Wow.
How do you look that person in the eye, honor their decades of grueling work and legacy, while simultaneously preparing to drag their analog systems into the 21st century? That is a radically different skill set. It requires deep empathy, psychological nuance, and operational grit, things you cannot learn in a tech incubator. So the next time you drive through your hometown and you pass that unassuming metal fabrication plant or you see a fleet of local commercial HVAC vans at a stoplight, look a little closer. Don't just see a boring business from the past. See the quiet, cash-flowing opportunity that the hoodie-wearing disruptors are leaving right on the table for you. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.